SCORE Northeast Wisconsin and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biztalk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences. From starting to sustaining growth, learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you miss anything, you can catch the Biztalk podcast at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biztalk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk with SCORE. I'm Rick Sense. Co-hosting with me this week is Terry Pinch. Terry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Despite the constant rain, I actually don't mind this weather too much.
Yeah, I think it's become more, it's always raining and then we get the occasional storm of sun as opposed to rain around here, it seems. Wow, it's been crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about today. We're continuing our month focused on financial education and financial literacy here on Biz Talk with SCORE. And our guest today is someone who I think will really add to that discussion. We're going to be speaking with Matt Juedes he is the Director of Development and Stewardship at Junior Achievement of Wisconsin. And I'm just going to go right into the show, Matt. And first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Can you maybe just give listeners a little bit of background on who you are and what your role is at JA right now?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm the Director of Development and Stewardship, and really what that entails is just going out to the community and really developing our fundraising plan, our marketing, and then hosting all of our events, as well as our facility here, which we'll talk about a little bit later in Appleton, that we host a lot of our programming in person, making sure we're getting the correct funding to keeping that going for the community. But I joined JA about 4 years ago. I came over from the corporate world and kind of made my switch into the nonprofit world, and I've just loved every little minute of it with JA and what we stand for and our mission. It's been a great fit in what we do here in Northeast Wisconsin.
Can you maybe give listeners a little bit of a flavor of what the mission of Junior Achievement is?
Yeah, so overall, we just prepare today's youth for the future. That's at the core of what we do. Our three pillars are really going to revolve, and when I say pillars, it's what we do for everything that we do with JA falls around these three things. It's going to be financial literacy, career and work readiness, and then entrepreneurship. So any JA program that you see in the classroom or here at our facility or anyway is going to have some element that falls into those three pillars, if not all three.
And how do you think your corporate background prepared you for that switch?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was a little nervous. I made kind of a big career switch during kind of the COVID times and moved over to the nonprofit. But there's been a lot of learning experiences, I'll say, and it's definitely a different world than the corporate world. But overall, there's a lot of similarities. And what I found in my background of mainly sales and development manager type positions, it's a lot of similarities. It's just different naming and how we handle things. So, I'm out there developing and fundraising, but that's the same thing as sales in the corporate world. And thanking your customers out in the corporate world is the same as stewardship here in the nonprofit world. So there's a lot of similarities, which has made it a lot easier for me to make that switch. I think the biggest difference I've seen is there's just a very keen eye on the budget in the nonprofit world, and you really have to make sure every dollar can stretch as far as it possibly can to make sure you're achieving your mission. So that's kind of the biggest difference, but overall it's been a pretty smooth transition.
And how has the transition been working with primarily an organization that's focused on people that aren't quite voting age yet and younger, to those that are already out, earning incomes and making a living?
Yeah, it's very interesting, but I think it really motivates you, especially having three kids of my own who are younger and kind of entering that world of understanding what is money and what do I do with it and why do I need it. It's really motivating to me to try to get some of these core elements into the brains of these kids at an early age. I think we'll talk about that later on, but how important it is that we're not waiting till high school. We're not waiting even till middle school to some of these concepts are very important to hit at a young age. So having conversations with kids that even come in here to our facility are just eye-opening on the things they know or some of the things they think they know and are still finding out kind of some of these concepts that we all just accept as adults. But really realizing if they're not taught this or if it's not brought up, they aren't going to know or they're going to form their own opinions. So it's critical for us to kind of get into the classrooms and get into our facility with this programming and having an understanding of this adult life that they're all going to be jumping into at some point.
So you mentioned adulting, and we all have to get to that point at some point. So could you maybe walk listeners through the curriculum and how it addresses the adulting issues of life, the community need that is out there, and how that bridge is crossed by junior achievement?
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, just to take a step back, we kind of have three core elements of what we do in Northeast Wisconsin. We have our facility here in Appleton. It's our experiential learning center. And we host two different programs here at the facility. One is Biztown, which is geared 4th through 6th graders. And then we also have Finance Park, which is geared towards 7th through 9th graders. Biztown is going to really get into that, what you just brought up, and the adulting. It's coming here and seeing this mock community that we have built in this facility. It's storefronts sponsored by local companies here that everyone is familiar with in Northeast Wisconsin. The students have 12 weeks of programming in the classroom, and then they come here to this facility and get to really do that hands-on experiential learning. They're given roles within each storefront. They get to operate as an adult throughout the day. It'd take me another 3 hours to kind of walk through all the elements that happen at Biztown, but it's a pretty cool integrated program that we have where there's a mayor, they get to vote, there's a police officer, there's CEOs, CFOs. They're getting to learn how to work with other businesses. They have to set up checking accounts. They have to financially budget and understand what they can buy versus make. So all of that's going on throughout the day. And on top of that, there also is career exploration as a part of that. They're getting to see what opportunities are available to me in Northeast Wisconsin. What type of education do I need? What type of, pay do I get for these jobs that I get? And also what kind of skill set is needed? We want to be equitable within our experiential learning center, that no matter what kind of education you're looking to get or what career you might want to have, we showcase all of it, whether it's a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, high school degree, a trade skill. All of that needs to be showcased to the students so they're really operating within what's best for them and what they want to do in the future. And then the Finance Park is more geared towards the financial literacy. And that's where they're actually given a tablet with a life scenario, and they have to budget and manipulate what they make and earn and spend throughout these different platforms on this tablet and software programs to make it work within their budget. So they're making choices on what house to buy and what car to afford and how to pay for their mortgage and do they have kids or no kids. All of that's built into this program related around financial literacy, which we all know is super important now more than ever. And then we also have our classroom programming as well that fits in that, where we have the volunteer go in the classroom, and we have several programs around that work and career readiness. It's really soft skills that we've found out is the most important for employers. Just basics of how do I work in a team? How do I handle a challenging situation? How do I communicate with others? All of that stuff that kids are trying to figure out as they grow up and how to work in a company.
Matt, as you do this work with schools, how difficult is it to have them get involved? Are they really excited and actually come in and start bringing their people to them, or do you have to go out and sell some of this to them?
It's honestly an easy sell for us. I mean, it's mainly for us, it's finding the volunteer. So we're 100% volunteer driven. We rely on the community to teach these lessons in the classroom. So unfortunately, sometimes our need outweighs what we actually have in terms of volunteers, or funding is the other aspect. But as far as selling it to the schools, it's a slam dunk. Everybody wants JA. Our biggest thing is just getting it to everybody that wants us with either the funding or the volunteer, and finding that person to go into the classroom and deliver this programming. But obviously it fits in with the Wisconsin curriculum, so it's kind of a natural transition into their normal schoolwork. So it's an easy sell for us on our end. It's just making sure the resources we have to keep up with that need. Wisconsin passing that financial literacy law here recently also increased the need for junior achievement. So we've seen an upkick in demand now more than ever.
Now, I had the privilege of teaching JA for many years, 6th grade level. Worked with Columbus School and then the environmental school over at near Jefferson Elementary in Appleton. And I probably shouldn't mention the teacher's name on the air, but it was really a great relationship because she would then reach out to me during the school year for other things too. So we really developed that relationship that I think we became resources for each other. Do you see that happen with your volunteers and working with the teachers and others in JA, that there's kind of this partnership that they work together on other things too?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had volunteers who've gone to the same classroom for 10 plus years. And like you mentioned, you really start to develop that trust and relationship with the teacher themselves, and there's that natural fit. And then we have other volunteers who just like mixing it up, and, maybe it's sixth grade they do one time and then they want to try fourth grade. And we have different kits for each different grade level. So I think we have over 50 different kits total within JA. So there's a lot of variety there, and some fit in that, K through 5 age, some fit more towards high school, but it's really up to the volunteer. But once they get into the classroom, it's an easy sell on the volunteer. Our retention rate is insanely high it's just digging up that new volunteer. But once they're in the classroom, they're pretty much sold on what we do, and they have a fun time doing it.
So how do you measure the impact of junior achievement then with all these programs you're doing? How do you measure the results?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something we're always kind of asking ourselves. We do right now pre and post testing with the students on some of our curriculum. We do the same here within our facility, gauging the knowledge gain for different core elements within our programming. How much is their financial literacy improved in these different areas? So that's the easiest metric right now that we have. We also have some strong growth goals for the future of increasing that. We want to establish an alumni network, which I think will definitely help kind of gauge some of that. Hey, you went through JA 10 years ago. Where are you now? What have you done with your career? How has JA helped you? Truthfully, we have a lot of studies done, a lot of statistics from JA USA. We're a national nonprofit. We're just more limited regionally here in Northeast Wisconsin, but that's a big area of our need here as we move forward, is to kind of get more localized data, because that's what people are going to be interested in Northeast Wisconsin, is what does the data say here in our communities and schools of how this is impacting our youth.
What's one of the biggest surprises that you've run into and folks at JA have run into when they walk into a classroom or do one of the simulations? What are they up against? What's the big thing that they've like, oh my gosh, we just can't believe that there's this much need for this? What is this?
Yeah, I think financial literacy and some of that, the core concepts of that come up quite often, especially in the high school age curriculum. I think that, we'll talk about this later on in the show, but there's a strong gap there, with some of our youth and the understanding of that. As far as actually volunteering, I mean, the biggest thing that I hear is how easy it is. That's kind of the biggest surprise. It's scary to go into a classroom, especially with kids. And depending on the age range, they ask some very direct questions. But everyone talks about how easy it is to just follow our kits. We've been doing this for years and years. We're a 100+ year organization. So the barriers to entry are small. You don't have to have a teaching background to be a volunteer. We want any walk of life to be a volunteer and talk to the kids openly. And kind of branching off that's really the other eye-opening thing is people love talking about their careers and their missteps and what they would do differently and the things they did well. And we welcome that at JA. You don't have to go in and sugarcoat anything that you did with your career. Kids are really going to understand and listen to you being honest about, hey, I tried this, it didn't work for me, and I'm going to share my experience with you as you go through your career, so you kind of understand that. So it's not just going through the curriculum and the programming, it's gauging the volunteer and what their experience is in life and careers and everything they did. So there's that honest conversation, and we often hear from teachers how much their kids really connect with that volunteer, because it's somebody new in the classroom, and they really like to connect and ask those questions. So that's a cool thing to hear.
Before we leave the idea of volunteering completely on the show today, maybe if I give listeners a few seconds to grab a pen, you'd be willing to, Matt, provide maybe information for them right now, instead of at the end of the program, about how they can volunteer and what they can do and where they can go to get more information?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you giving me that forum right now. Our website is pretty easy. It's northeastwisconsin.ja.org. So that website's going to give you all the programs we offer. There's even a form that you can fill out if you're interested in volunteering. It also shows kind of our mission and information about our board and events. So that's kind of your all-in-one resource. As far as getting connected personally, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can facilitate you to one of our education managers. How it kind of works is we have a team here by region that will kind of facilitate with you what you're looking to do, what school you might want to get in, and then make that relationship with the teacher and kind of bridge that connection on when does it make sense, what kind of kit do you want to do, and when can you get into the classroom. So my contact information, my direct number is 920-441-1144. And then my email address is mjuedes@jawis.org. So either of those of you, a way to get in touch with me. My information is also on the website if you prefer to go there as well.
Well, I can tell listeners it's a great experience. I remember those days fondly. And if you're on the fence about it, you can take it from Terry and I. I know Terry's done JA as well in the past. It's something I think that you'll enjoy and get as much out of as the kids that you will have in the classroom do as well. So again, you're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE. Our guest this morning is Matt Juedes from he's the Director of Development and Stewardship at Junior Achievement of Wisconsin, and we're going to be right back after we take our first break. Welcome back to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. I'm Rick Sentz, along with Terry Pinch this week. And our guest this morning is Matt Juedes from the Junior Achievement of Wisconsin. And it's been a very interesting discussion so far and looking forward to getting back to it. But first, I just want to take a minute to talk to you about SCORE. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves a 29-county area here in Northeast and in North Central Wisconsin. And we have more than 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field. And they offer entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise they specialize in include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, human resources, retail best practices. You get the idea. It's a lot of stuff, and there's many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, please visit our website at score.org, Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. And remember, SCORE is no cost, and it offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And to support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we would love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. And finally, this reminder about the Biz Talk with SCORE podcast. The Biz Talk with SCORE podcast brings you the same real-world information and insights from experienced entrepreneurs and business leaders, just like Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY. However, Biz Talk with SCORE, the podcast, is available when you are. So listen and subscribe today, tomorrow, or whenever you want. Available on most podcatchers and podcast apps. So thanks again for joining us this morning on Biz Talk. And Terry, I'll turn the show over to you.
Okay, thanks. Again, we're talking to Matt Juedes, the Director of Development and Stewardship at Junior Achievement of Wisconsin. And Matt, can we talk a little bit now about what Junior Achievement is doing to start to reach out to underserved communities across Wisconsin?
Yeah, our number one goal or decision-making here in JA is that there is no barrier to access our programming, whether it's funding, whether it's busing, whatever it might be. There should be no barrier for all students in Northeast Wisconsin to have our programming, and we follow that very tightly. So within our classroom programming, one of the things that it maybe is not as well known in the community is we don't actually charge the school districts for our programming. The main part of my job as a fundraiser is to go out there and make those community connections to make sure we have the money and the fundraising to provide these services. But as far as the programming here within our facility that I talked about at our Experiential Learning Center, we use a kind of a needs-based pricing based on the free and reduced lunch rate in Wisconsin. So that's kind of tiered to make sure that those underserved communities have more access to come here at a lower rate and make sure that we spread that across Northeast Wisconsin. My job as well is if there's ever a community that funding is an issue, even at the reduced rate, I will go out and connect that local company in their area to sponsor them to come here for the day. We've had a lot of good traction with that. So those are kind of two ways that we're trying to reach underserved communities. But our territory is really all of Northeast Wisconsin. We go down through Fond du Lac, all the way up through Marinette, and all the way into Door County. So as I mentioned a little bit before, there always becomes the resources and funding issue, but we do have strong growth goals for the next 5 years, and one of those is to really make sure that we're expanding into the Door County, that we're expanding in northern Wisconsin, and making sure that all of these communities have access to our programming. We want to actually grow by 12,000 youth here in the next 5 years. So currently we do around 22,000 served in Northeast Wisconsin each year. Our 5-year goal is that we'll be up towards that 30 to 35,000 youth at the end of the 5 years.
Okay, so as you look at the different communities, both in the underserved community piece we talked about, but just in general as maybe Door County versus Fond du Lac or Marinette, and how do you adapt your curriculum to meet those local community needs?
Yeah, so it all really starts with those strong local partnerships. So going out into the community and having those relationships with the employers and the industries that we have in Northeast Wisconsin, and that's how we can really localize our offerings. I think it works very closely with our facility here because we have the sponsors in our facility that are Northeast Wisconsin companies. So I have constant communication with them on, hey, what are you seeing with your workforce? What do we need to be providing to kids to be more involved in understanding when they get into the workforce? And we do that beyond just our sponsors as well, with local school districts, higher education institutions, and also community leaders. So we're constantly out in the community kind of polling them to see what they're looking at, what they're doing, because maybe it's different in Northeast Wisconsin than it is in Wisconsin, than it is across the nation, and that's often true. So I think that's one way how we can shape our programs so that we're being more localized in the classrooms and at our facility. It also makes sure that we're constantly being relevant to the industries that we are providing here in Northeast Wisconsin. Our biggest goal not only is to connect kids with the careers that make sense for them, but we also want to keep the kids here in Northeast Wisconsin. We don't want them to leave Wisconsin thinking, well, I can't do that in Northeast Wisconsin, when majority of the time is they absolutely can. We have huge industries here, huge companies covering all the different fields, whether it's manufacturing, healthcare, finance, agriculture, technology. All of that exists in Northeast Wisconsin, and we want to make sure that kids are aware of that and know that they can stay right here and have an excellent career.
Okay, thanks for that, Matt. We're going to take our second break. You're listening to Biztalk with Score and WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Biztalk with Score. This week we're talking to Matt Juedes from the Junior Achievement of Wisconsin, where he's the Director of Development Stewardship in Northeast Wisconsin. Before we get back to Matt, I just want to give you an education update. And it's a little bit different this week because the education provided by Score Northeast Wisconsin is heavily built around this radio show. So that's our purpose, is to educate people about the organizations and businesses in this area. And this month is Financial Literacy Month. And so we've been doing a theme month through the whole month to try and help people understand what financial literacy means and how it impacts them. And I just want to draw attention to this being the third show of the month. In the first show, we talked to people from the Department of Financial Institutions in Wisconsin and had a great discussion on all aspects of financial literacy. Last week, we talked to the Geenan Group at Baird and got an understanding on the investing side. This week, you're hearing an incredible amount about junior achievement and all the great things they do. And next week, we're going to talk to Johnson Financial Group and get an understanding of the bank and what they do for financial literacy. And hopefully what you get out of this is, one, there's an incredible amount of resources across the state for you to take advantage of to really understand financial literacy. And I tell you, it's far more expansive than it was 20 years ago, where quite frankly, quite often it was junior achievement was the one group you had in many cases. Now you're getting more and more of that built, and it's happened over 20 and 30 years, and it's great to see. So again, this whole month is Financial Literacy Month, and Biztalk with Score is trying to bring that to you as well. So we'll get back to Matt now. And Matt, in your opinion, what is the biggest financial literacy gap facing youth today?
Yeah, that's a question I could have, 15 different answers for. But I think if I could sum it up in kind of one overall theme, it would be really the lack of practical and real world decision making skills all around money. I think, a lot of our youth are exposed to the basic concepts like saving or budgeting. That's the cliche kind of words that are being used. But there's a gap in understanding the long term effects of those decisions. When you buy a house, you don't just pay X amount of money and then you're done with it. There's mortgage and there's interest and there's all these other things that compound over time. And I think that's the biggest key in today's youth is understanding when you make these decisions, they can affect 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And really understanding that in the moment, it may sound great, but to really think about the ramifications on the long term of your saving. And kind of branching off of that, I don't know if this is necessarily a gap, but also one of the issues that I personally see as a father of three is just the misinformation that's out there. We live in the digital age. Everything is readily there at the click of a button. And so much of it that the youth can see is just not based around fact. And, we live in a world of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and the stock market. And there's so much information that they're seeing, it's so fast that one of the things that JA does is kind of ground that information back into what's truth, what's factual. Let's get back to the basics because you're out there seeing so much being pushed down from the world that there can be that misinformation that they start to learn as truth over time. And that's something we're trying to combat with.
One of the things that you mentioned, I just want to kind of pick up on a little bit too, and the misinformation. Junior Achievement has this great curriculum. I mean, I'm sure that there's people from all levels of education that go and put their time and effort into developing that curriculum. So that when you open the book and the booklet that you get to prepare and work with the students on, you're dealing with stuff that's researched. It's very credible. Why is that so important to have that underlying credibility when you walk into a classroom with the kids? Would you even put that more worthwhile than having the cool factor when you walk into the classroom with the kids? I mean, how does that play into what you guys do, and how does that serve your ultimate mission, and that is education? The misinformation that you aren't talking about, but you are talking about it because you have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point, and I think building that trust is kind of the biggest thing with JA. If you're going to go in and teach this lesson to kids, we have to be based in trust. And we've been around. JA Wisconsin was formed in 1919, so over 100 years, we've definitely know what we're doing. And this is vetted by a whole bunch of different things that's been revamped and constantly looked at and making sure that we're following standards. We fit right in with Wisconsin curriculum as well. So this is not something that's, extra or kind of off of what's being taught in the classroom. We fit right in. But yeah, there is a trust bit with the volunteer that is critical to when they go into the classroom. They know that what they're reading and what they're teaching is accurate and factual and really setting these kids up for success in the future versus something that might change or, that's not vetted out. So I agree that's important with our volunteers to build that trust with them because they're the ones who have to go in the classroom and teach it. And it's important to them that it makes sense and that it's accurate.
Can you walk through for listeners what the key elements are of financial literacy that JEA actually teaches?
Yeah. So I'd say if it kind of summing it up in maybe 3 points, how income is earned and then how your career and education choices affect earning potential, just so they kind of have that understanding of what they might want to do in life and how that might affect their income later on and the lifestyle that they want to live. Then more on the budgeting side, I think tracking income and expenses, needs versus wants is a very core concept that we try to introduce. And I think we're all familiar as adults with what that might mean. But truthfully, even some of us adults need that reminder of the needs versus wants at times. And then a big thing is preparing for unexpected expenses, right? We know life now as adults, but kids, sometimes it's hard for them to understand that concept that something might come up that you didn't know was going to happen. And you need to have that savings. You need to have that rainy day fund set aside and what the ramifications might be if you don't have that. And then also programs that I mentioned, like our finance park here at the Experiential Learning Center, that gets them to practice that in a real-time kind of experiential environment. So it's not just, in a book, it's here at the facility. It's a realistic life scenario they're given. So it's very likely that it's something that them or a family member or one of their friends actually have that situation, and reinforces responsible decision making. So it's kind of just reinforcing that concept of making smart financial decisions early on and how that looks to set up the rest of their life.
Can you share with listeners maybe a life that you know of that's been impacted, or a group of people whose life has been changed because of JA and the lessons you're trying to distill on all of our youth in our society?
Yeah, we have. It's always great hearing back from teachers or someone, especially at our experiential learning center, of some of the experiences the kids have had here and the eye-opening things that they've had. One of the impact stories that I like to share, because I think any parent can definitely relate to this and have had this feeling at some point. But we had a boy here for Biztown who was here at the Experiential Learning Center. This was a boy who was just not your typical classroom student. You know, he was struggling in schoolwork, struggled taking tests, kind of struggled in all of the traditional core elements of school. So this parent was constantly hearing how his child was struggling. And, you know, as a parent, that's tough to hear over time. Well, we had one of our sponsors here was in our welding booth, and this kid was doing excellent, just excelled at doing welding. So this volunteer told him that, and the kid's eyes lit up, and he was just so excited. Well, then the volunteer told the teacher this, and she actually started to cry because when she told the parent, it said, "This is the first time that I've ever heard a compliment for my child on what they were doing." And just to hear that and have the parents start to tear up because they could finally talk with their kid about something he was good at and passionate about. Even I'm choking up a little bit talking about it. I think we all can relate to that. Even at something at 4th and 5th grade, when you're just told that you're not good at anything, to maybe you need to branch out and find that there are tons of things you're good at. You just haven't experienced it yet. So I really like that impact story because it kind of showcases what we're doing and showing all the different avenues that students can take, but really meeting students at where they're at. It's not pushing any one career path towards them. It's letting them explore it. And then you have cool impact stories like that.
I have to speak for the show title, our show title, Biztalk, and you talk about Biztown. That's a pretty cool name for your simulation there. And just talking about the biz side of that, and more than just the financial literacy piece for the individual, but for the business side of things. And how do you help students understand the value of the business world or entrepreneurship? What kind of things does Junior Achievement do to work with students around those topics?
Yeah, it's important. I mean, that preparing them for their career and kind of that workforce readiness is an important part of what we do here. So we talked about the financial component of it, but with Biztown too, it's also operating within a community itself. It's understanding how these businesses, even maybe competitors, but they're also synergy in how they can work together and accomplish great things. And there's also the other side of it with having a mayor and a police officer and having to vote, some of that civic responsibility we're also teaching here. Just understanding what that is as adult life that you have to do and understand how to do. One of the funny things we have here in our facility is it's actually kind of like a green looking carpet and it's grass. And the students can actually get fined by the police officer if they walk on that grass, and they have to pay $1 fine. So just another cool element that we're building in to kind of showcase it's beyond the financial side and the work. There's just living and life in a community and giving back and what you need to do to become a part of that community that we embrace here. And that's honestly, I think, where the students connect most to it, is getting to do some of those adult things and experience that for the day is so cool for the kids.
Matt, one of the things we see as we mentor clients is there's a disconnect many times between the idea they have for their new business and the fun they want to have and the need to keep track of finances. And there has to be a balance there to be successful. How do you teach students to balance the finance side with their career and their goal?
Yeah, a core part of our approach is really helping students understand trade-offs, which is, kind of what you're getting to. We do budgeting exercises, the life simulations that I talked about, and then they learn how to make choices, that relate to the length and cost of their education of something they might want to do. Again, another trade-off. Do you want to go to 4 or 6 years of college to become, this career that you might have thought you wanted but no longer do? Starting salary obviously has a big play into what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? working on your work-life balance, or is that super important to you at this stage of your career? And also career advancement timelines is another key aspect of that. Maybe you want to advance quickly and the field you're looking at just doesn't have that in place right now. So I think all of those concepts around trade-offs are what we try to build that kind of mentality in students to. It's not just one decision, it's multiple decisions and what you want to do. And there's pros and cons, as we know, for every type of field, every industry, every career. It's understanding those so they can make an informed decision.
So, Matt, from your perspective, what are the top 3 goals that Junior Achievement of Wisconsin has over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so we've got a lot, but I think the one that I mentioned before, and I'll reiterate again, is meet the rising demand that we have so we can ultimately serve an additional 12,000 youth in Northeast Wisconsin in the next 5 years. So a little bit more than 30% increase that we want, but we have the need there. It's just finding the resources and getting that funding, which is part of our strong growth goals. We already talked about this one as well, but another would be expanding our areas of reach where we don't currently have programming. So that's getting more into those rural areas, getting more into northern Wisconsin. There's definitely the need there. Again, just expanding our resources to get into those areas so we're equitable across all of Northeast Wisconsin. And then we have a pretty strong funding goal here over the next 5 years to make sure that we have short-term and long-term success. Some of the things that we're doing with that additional funding would be an infusion of those funds into our yearly budget so we can accomplish some goals that we have for ourselves. We want to meet the current demand, increase awareness and engagement. I've kind of alluded this before, but we have a large awareness issue for JA in Northeast Wisconsin. We have a lot of dedicated volunteers and partners who know and love what we do, but we also have a lot who don't know what we do. And it's important for us to get the awareness out there because that's everything for a nonprofit. We want to analyze the efficiency of our programs. I think we talked about that a little bit before, getting that alumni network, some more metrics localized to Northeast Wisconsin on some of those knowledge gain that we have. We want to expand some of our offerings. We're in the digital age. We know AI is here. How do we revamp and kind of expand some of our offerings to not that AI is taking over, but how do we complement the AI with what we do in some of the digital programs? And then also get more strategic with our partnerships. There's a lot of great corporations and organizations in the Northeast Wisconsin. I would say no one does truly what JA does, but there's a lot of complements to what we can do working with these organizations. We have a lot of partnerships in place, but there's also a lot of strategic partnerships up there that I think could make us more successful overall, and it's going after those within the next 5 years.
With the BizTown simulation, too, you mentioned having a mayor, the presence of government, and obviously government has an impact on everything in life, but it's impacting junior achievement as well with the new financial literacy law that is been passed. How is that impacting you? Maybe just spend a moment talking a little bit about the law and how that law will long-term affect JA and your work here in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was a great thing for awareness, right? Not that financial literacy wasn't something I already talked about, but I think it's really put it to the forefront of all the schools in our district and our area here. So if anything, to sum it up, I'd say it definitely helped with what JA does. I mean, that's one of our core pillars, as we talked about. We are in the financial literacy space. I think the biggest challenge we have is understanding that, as we talked about before with that trust, we've been here. We've done this for 100+ years. We have vetted curriculum ready to go that has everything you need for financial literacy. It's just creating that awareness to these schools and these districts that we have it, or even organizations. You don't need to start from scratch and create your own financial literacy component. We already have it ready to go, and we can just give it to you. It's just making those connections, having those conversations with people, understanding what we have so we can work better for them to include it within their curriculum or programming or within their organizations. Why recreate the wheel when we already have the wheel made? So I would say that's the biggest challenge with that, and something that we're constantly talking about every day to try to get more understanding that we have it here already.
Now, in your time with Junior Achievement, what's been the thing or the things that you have found most rewarding so far, Matt?
Yeah, kind of following that same theme about our lack of awareness. I think that's one of my biggest goals since joining, is really increasing the awareness. And that goes for everything, students coming here, to volunteers, to our donors, to our partners, to our advocates, just all things awareness. But one of my favorite things is finding that organization or company who didn't know truthfully what JA was at all. Maybe they've heard of us briefly. Maybe they went through one of our programs in the 90s or back when they were a kid and just vaguely knew the name, but things have changed. So I think finding that company and really, turning it around to where they're a huge advocate at JA and believe in what we do and hearing that impact. And now they're providing us funding and they're sending us volunteers in the classroom and they want to get involved in our events. I think that's really cool to kind of have that mentality switch from a company had no clue who we were to now they love us and they want to do everything through us. And that's kind of really, really cool from a development perspective to see that transpire. And sometimes it takes years to happen, but kind of slowly see that wheel turning and getting more involvement. It's a cool aspect of what I get to do.
Are you having fun?
I am having a blast. Yeah, I love it. And I think based on everything I just said, plus having 3 kids of my own and getting connect to all the other kids in Northeast Wisconsin, it's definitely a passion of mine in what we do.
And listeners, I can definitely support Matt's comment about it being a passion. He's basically jumped out at us here a few times with his excitement talking about the topics that we brought up today this morning. So he's very passionate about what he does. So with that, we're going to take our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Biz Talk. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their generous support of Biz Talk. Haley & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for the future. Haley & Associates, personal connection, positive results. Wherever you are in the life of your business or your own life, Johnson Financial Group works to match banking and wealth services needed to help you complete your mission. Thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. It is the latest business news and topics for the region. We are grateful for the support of Community First Credit Union. At its core, Community First is a group of member owners where people work together to improve their financial well-being and help one another. New North, the Regional Marketing and Economic Development Corporation, is an active supporter of SCORE. The New North facilitates economic growth and helps people in this region live their best lives. Since 1919, Baird has guided families through investment, trust, estate, and tax planning advice. So no matter what the future brings, you can be confident you're ready because Baird, your family, is Baird's focus. We'd like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund in the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation to Biztalk and SCORE Northeast Wisconsin and for all their support over the last 2 years. And with that, we'll turn back to Matt. And Matt, can you kind of let us know what advice you would give to a student as they're preparing to enter the workforce?
No, it's a great question. One, I had a discussion with my oldest daughter. She's 8, and she came to me and said, Daddy, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And as a father, there's a lot of things you can go back on, but I think it still relates to kind of my answer for this. And if any student came to me and was kind of asking with that first job or entering that first career and not really knowing what to do, I would really say that your first job does not have to define your entire career. We all know that. Look at where we all started out and where we ended up, and there's going to be a lot of changes along the way. I'd also be more focused on what you can learn from it. Look for roles where you can build your skills, ask a lot of questions, gain experience. I think that's going to benefit you more so in your career than whatever, don't get stuck on what the specific title or the job responsibilities might be. Really look for growth, especially when you're starting at your career, because those are the ones that are going to challenge you. Those are the ones you're going to learn the most from any career. And then also make sure you consider what kind of lifestyle do you want, that pay versus the work-life balance. Make sure that you're always understanding that, less so with your first job, but those are always kind of the questions you want to have as your understanding, as we talked about, those trade-offs when you make decisions. What's the trade-off in terms of pay versus, the flexibility in my job? And that's going to be important when you eventually get married and have kids and have a family. All those things factor in.
And Matt, could you let our listeners know once again how they can connect with Junior Achievement?
Yeah, our website again for Northeast is northeastwisconsin.ja.org. And then my direct number and email is 920-441-1144. And my email is mjuedes@jawis.org.
All right, Matt, first of all, thank you very much. It's really great show to learn about all the things Junior Achievement is doing to help promote financial literacy in our younger people. And we really appreciate all the effort you're putting into it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Okay. So for listeners, both Rick and I, as we mentioned in the show, were involved with Junior Achievement earlier in our lives, and it was a great organization. And for me, it was incredible to come back and see how much they've evolved. And the programs have gone from fairly straightforward to pretty integrated, pretty unique, pretty complicated. And they manage it really well. And so very, very appreciative of what Junior Achievement does. And please, if you're listening, get your kids involved if you can. It's a great way to learn. So thank you very much, Matt, and thank you, Junior Achievement. For all our listeners, you've been listening to Biztalk with SCORE on WHBY. You can find previous episodes on both our own website at score.org, Northeast Wisconsin, or you can go to podcatchers everywhere and you'll find various episodes over the last 18 months. We've been on the air now with WHBY. This is our 25th year, so we're very appreciative of all their support and hope that you get a lot out of it. So to everybody, join us again next Saturday. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.